We're rolling right along with report cards while we get ready for a Dodgers versus whoever World Series. So let's get strapped in and let's get locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warne, and I've been watching the Twins for 30 years, covering them for about half that. You've seen my written work at Access Twins newsletter, Puckett's Pond, even the Daily Norseman. I've been writing about the Vikings, 1500 ESPN, Star Tribune, all of those, pretty much anywhere you've read or seen Twins content, I've had at least a hand in there. So appreciate you for checking that out. And for thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. Love to hear from you if you are an everydayer. So please feel free to be active in the comments, whether that is on YouTube, if you're watching the premiere, or just at any time after the premiere. Give us a shout, give us a note, and I'll do my best to hang out in the comments and chat with you all that good stuff. 5-star reviews are huge. Likes and subscribes also huge for us, so we appreciate that greatly. On today's episode, we will be grading some more Twins hitters, mostly on the infield side of things, but we do branch out a little bit into the outfield based on the proclivities of one of our utility players. Before we get started, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Excuse me, still battling that cold a little bit here, so doing our best to feel and look good here, despite the cough. But we're going to dive right into our 4 players today. And so we got through last time a couple of catchers and a couple of first base-ish type guys. This is going to be a little more fun because it's a little more of the dynamic players who more likely factor into the team's future, medium-ish to longer term-ish future. And so we get to talk about Luke Keaschall, who obviously had a phenomenal, if abbreviated, 2025 season. We'll talk about Royce Lewis, who, for all his issues, still seems to be part of the future. We'll see what happens. I mean, he did have that kind of bizarre comment about, I could be traded. Didn't really understand that. But Brooks Lee, tough year, but former first-round pick, so there might be something there. So we'll see what happens. And then Austin Martin, utility man, who took the bull by the horns down the stretch and was a big contributor for the Twins after the trade deadline. So we'll start it out with second baseman Luke Keaschall, slashed 302, 382, 445 in 207 plate appearances. Now, depending on your WAR preference, that's 2.0 on Baseball Reference, 1.6 on Fangraphs. Big question for me. What's his positional future? Is it at second base? That's kind of where he's played a significant amount of time there in the major leagues, in the minors. He's moved around. He's played some outfield. He's played some first base. The Twins probably have the most pressing need, medium to long term, at first base. But I don't know. I mean, a player with Keaschall's athleticism, I don't know if you want to shoehorn him or pigeonhole him into first base. What's the future at second base? I mean, obviously, Edouard Julien, not as much of a part of the future as he was a year ago. Brooks Lee, I mean, a year ago was looking like second base, third base with Carlos Correa in tow. Now it's nobody really knows. So if Keaschall doesn't land at second base, certainly the outfield is at least a thought. Certainly, Byron Buxton in center field, we all want to knock on wood, hope that he's going to be out in center for still a long time yet. And the Twins have Walker Jenkins, and they have Emmanuel Rodriguez, and they have Gabriel Gonzalez, in addition to Matt Wallner and Austin Martin and, other left field and right field options. So honing in on a positional future for Keaschall is going to be important. Another thing too is, so he had a 134 weighted runs created plus. If you are not familiar, it's a lot like OPS plus on Baseball Reference. Basically, it's just trying to give you a view into how this player fits to compared to their contemporaries with things neutralized for context. So anyway, in the proper context, Keaschall was 34% better than league average. That's a 363 weighted on base average, which again, another Fangraphs-y type stat. Where I'm a little bit concerned though is his expected weighted on base average based on batted ball profile and that sort of thing is 329. So you got about a 34-point gap between how he performed and how the batted ball data said he should have. The expected average was something closer to 270 as opposed to the 302 that he had for a batting average. So all of this is to say, I don't want to go into next year assuming Luke Keaschall is going to hit the ground running both with his legs and with his bat, assuming that he's just going to replicate a 302 average. That seems to be a dangerous precedent. Down the stretch, he hit 214, 292, 310 over his last 12 games. That's 48 plate appearances. Now, there's certainly an amount of probably fatigue in that. He has not played a full season due to injury in quite some time. So I'm not trying to say, hey, that stretch is him normalizing towards that expected weighted on base average or anything. However, I do think there just needs to be some built-in expectation adjusting that he may not do exactly what he did this season, next season. And it won't be because he made any appreciable changes, but just that, he's adjusting to the league and vice versa. So we'll see what happens there. Some things that I do like, though, 9.2% walk rate. That fits anywhere in an order. You could bat a guy like that leadoff with very little to no problem. And 14.0 strikeout percentage. So basically, I don't know, it's not quite 10% below league average, but well below league average when it comes to strikeout percentage. So I don't know if there's a view or a vision for Byron Buxton to move down in the order a little bit. I like him leading off, but if you want some of those home runs to drive in a few more runs, having him bat third behind Alan Roden, Austin Martin, Luke Keaschall, some combination of that. Emmanuel Rodriguez, another option. Excuse me. There's some options there to bat leadoff to move Buxton down and kind of lengthen this lineup out. So we'll see where it goes from there. But in general, I don't know how you can come away from Luke Keaschall this season and not be wildly impressed, and certainly glad they did not trade him for Eric Fedde, who had a very difficult season spread out across a couple teams. So, yeah, we'll find out what Luke Keaschall's positional future is, because his arm, we don't know anything about his arm coming off the UCL or the Tommy John surgery. Now he has UCL surgery in his left thumb. Lots of injuries, not all particularly related, but just something to keep an eye on too. It's sort of like JJ McCarthy, the quarterback. At some point it's like your best ability is availability, and you got to see that from a guy like Luke Keaschall. So for his grade, drum roll, please. We're going to give him an A. And I think it's pretty hard to give Luke Keaschall anything other than an A. He was tremendous. And really all that I have as a gripe for him is that I want to see more of him. That's not much of a gripe. So, all right, let's do this. Let's take a pause. When we come back, we'll talk about Royce Lewis, maybe get into Brooks Lee a little bit. And before we finish, Austin Martin. But again, first, a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards, Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown or not, all that sort of stuff, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is too. Less than a minute and you have a lineup. That's faster than you brew your coffee every morning. And also they just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. Hoping that Jalen Hurts hits all of the unders this weekend against the Vikings. And it's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. If you want to do that, I want to have my own lineup. But if you have someone else that you want to emulate because it's the sincerest form of flattery, then that's what you want to do. And the new injury reboot feature, easy for me to say, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it doesn't count against you. And there is a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Golden State Warriors versus LA Lakers game on October 21st. So coming up here very soon. Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than a half a point to win. Easiest bet in the game. Mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball and build your dream lineup today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Locked On Twins back. We're rocking, we're rolling here into segment 2. And it's time to talk about Royce Lewis, third baseman, 237, 283, 388 / in 403 plate appearances. It's a 0.7 B WAR, a 1.0 F WAR. This is one where the issue can be, do you grade a guy based on expectations as opposed to just straight up production? And expectations certainly high. You've got former first overall pick, playoff performance, first couple seasons in the league, phenomenal. Then you figure in injury issues. So staying healthy is an issue. And then performance. I mean, we're going on now, last 2 seasons, spanning nearly 200 games of 1.3 baseball reference WAR. It's 188 games. So between one full regular season and 200 games, 235, 288, 416 for a slash, with 162 game averages of 25 homers, 85 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases. Now, 162 game averages are tricky. Not a lot of people play 162 games. Royce Lewis does not play 162 games. So it's more along the lines of like, this is what you could be in line for if he stays healthy. With that said, 235 batting average, 288 on base, not going to get it done. That's if you were a great fielding shortstop 15, 20 years ago, you bat ninth, pop a home run every now and then, you're Alex Gonzalez style player. That is not Royce Lewis. First of all, he plays third base. Second of all, the expectations are higher than that. And I've been impressed. The third base defense improved. I thought it was much better this year than it had been. More comfortability, fluidity on some of the plays that differentiate an average third baseman from an above average third baseman. He's starting to get there. And also, too, the speed ticked up. We broke down the sprint speed for Twins TV, and like every month it went up. Like as he felt more and more comfortable testing his hamstring and other lower extremities, you could see he kind of was starting to cut loose on the bases. And that's for the best. You have to see what you're capable of, and not having to throttle it down all the time, I think, can play a role mentally in how a guy feels performance-wise. Now, you're looking at a guy who had a 152 ISO. So ISO, for people who are not aware, is slugging percentage minus batting average. It just basically helps you gauge the extra base power that a hitter has. It's not something you're going to see on back of a baseball card or a TV screen terribly often, but for comparison's sake, he had a 152 ISO, so 388 slug minus 237 average with some rounding in there because that's 131, or 151, but 152, 151, 152 is your range here. He was over 200 his first 3 years, including 2024 when he also dealt with injuries. So where did that power go? And was there a disconnect between his lower half mechanics and issues and his upper half when it comes to his swing? That's what I think is probably the case. And I think that's something that can improve. He's going into his age 27 season. So he's a mid-season birthday, so he'll be 26 for half the season. The age distinction is just age on July 1st of the season. I think his birthday is like June 5th. So it's not like he's going to be 27 all season long, and that doesn't particularly matter. But he's still young, but maybe not as young as it feels based on the fact that he's had all this time where he hasn't been healthy, with the ACLs and the lower half, basically. So the defense better, the speed better. Let's get that swing fixed. And I think that there's still a really good player in here. 3 more years of control. So he's at arbitration again this year. I believe he qualified as a Super 2 because he made like $1.63 million this season. Probably get a slight uptick this coming season, but there's still 3 more years of control. So that does tell me it's an ARB2 situation or a Super 2 situation. But 3 more years of control. That strange comment about, I don't know if I'm going to be traded. I mean, dude, you got like a 7, I don't know, what does it come out to? 7-something OPS, high 6s. I don't know. I think sometimes the comments he makes are not as self-aware as they need to be. Like, dude, not a lot of teams are going to come calling for a third baseman with a 686 OPS or 681 or whatever it is. It's if they do, it's because they think they're going to get a guy who's on the upswing or that has something left to offer. And if that's the case, and the Twins want to do something like that, I would think maybe finding a way to get Adley Rutschman from the Orioles would make some sense. The problem is, hear me out. The Orioles don't really need infielders like Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holiday. I mean, they're flush. Jordan Westberg. They're flush with infielders. They've been flush with infielders for a while. That's why they could trade Connor Norby, and why this is the depth they have. It's where they're strong. But with Samuel Basallo coming through at catcher and Rutschman down the last couple of years, maybe there's a change of scenery situation where you can flip-flop here. If that's the case, that's about the only chance I would consider any sort of trade with Royce Lewis is my post-hype sleeper for yours. I'm not trading Royce Lewis for a reliever. I'm not trading him for, if you could find a starting pitcher that, maybe a year ago's version of Jesus Luzardo. So with that in mind, I mean, could you trade Royce Lewis for Edward Cabrera? I really doubt it, but it would have to be that sort of trade. I'm not dumping Royce Lewis just to dump him. The money doesn't make sense. The player type doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So Royce, again, better at third defense. Speed did jump a little bit as the season went on. Got to find some power. And beyond that, 3 years of control. I don't think Royce is going anywhere. With that said, drum roll, please. Royce Lewis, you have gotten a D+ for 2025. I think it's going to be better in 2026. Hopefully it's here. But at the same time, too, I could see them making a challenge trade. But for our first two guys, Luke Keaschall has an A, Royce Lewis a D+. We're going to take our final pause. When we come back, Brooks Lee will get some love, possibly, and Austin Martin will get some love. But again, let's take our final pause. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I've seen put down 5, get 100, 150, 200, 250, but never, ever have I seen 300. And I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play, whether it's a same game parlay, live action, you name it, FanDuel has got it. Makes watching football even more exciting. You're already watching the action. Why not get a little action on the action? And whether you're a casual fan or if you're a stat freak like me, diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, we're coming down the home stretch here. Luke Keaschall gets an A, Royce Lewis a D+. We have two more guys for this edition of Twins report cards. Brooks Lee, shortstop, 236, 285, 370, and 527 plate appearances. Maybe more plate appearances than I think a lot of us realize because he was there pretty much the bulk of the season. Minus 1.0 baseball reference WAR, 0.3 on the positive side for Fangraphs. We're now up to a full season plus, 189 games. And Brooks Lee has a 75 weighted runs created plus and limited defensive value. Sorry, I'm flipping my page here. So there is going to be some people who are going to say, man, you're getting close to that magic number of 1,000 plate appearances where you kind of have an idea of what you got. I would caution still, or like have some caution still. We saw some really good stretches. The hitting streak in June hit 348, 375, 533, and nearly 100 plate appearances, including that hitting streak where he seemed to get like one single every single game. I think you also have to give him a longer look, and not just because of his draft position, age. He's heading into his age 25 season, still plenty young. But also, I just want to see what kind of shortstop he settles into. I felt like as the season went on, and especially at the end when he was playing shortstop full time, he started to kind of grow into the position, not entirely unlike Royce did at third. And I think we have that impatience, and it's you want to see a guy grab a job and take it and run with it, kind of like Luke Keaschall did. And that's just not realistic for a lot of guys. And again, I know Lewis was a number one overall pick. Lee was top 5 or whatever he was. Keaschall, a high pick, but not that high. But yeah, all these guys kind of have to be treated a little bit differently. One thing Lee did that I don't know if a lot of people would have realized this, he led the team on hits on pitches out of the strike zone. So I was tracking that all season long. I think he finished right around 20 hits on pitches out of the strike zone. My question is, what do you do with that? This is a guy who is a low strikeout. I think the walks could be there, but it's not entirely unlike Eddie Rosario. Now, Eddie Rosario chased, swung it a little more wildly than Brooks Lee, but Eddie Rosario was kind of cut from that Kirby Puckett bad ball hitter cloth, and he was kind of a victim of his own success. Eddie Rosario could swing at everything because he could reach everything and he could foul off / do damage with everything. As Rosario got to his age, his 30s, and wasn't able to get to as many pitches, his career just kind of fizzled out. With Lee, I think it's more along the lines of he does protect the plate well. As a result, he doesn't strike out that much, and some of those hits dropped for him. Now, if those hits dropped for him and he was still not a particularly good hitter, that's troubling. If he can be a bit of a bad ball hitter and not strike out, you'd feel like there is some value because every good hitter has to get some ugly hits. It's more along the lines of like what percent of those ugly hits represent your total hits, if that makes sense. So I guess what I want to see from Lee is like, even though he didn't strike out that much, it felt like he struck out in big spots. It felt like he struck out, just the sequencing of it. And again, like it's not deliberate or anything. It's just like it felt like he was one of the examples of, oh, Twins are in a big spot. Something bad's going to happen. Brooks Lee's going to strike out. Carlos Correa's going to hit into a double play. Someone's going to pop out. Not even far enough to be a sac fly or anything. Just too many empty, useless plate appearances in big spots. So, I caution, or I say we should exercise some caution with how we view Brooks Lee. But with that said, he needs to be viewed as a part of the future, but a part of the future who needs to improve. The kind of guy you bat eighth on a good to decent to good team. Right now, it doesn't look like the Twins would be that good of a team next year. They certainly within their control, but we'll talk about that more as the offseason goes on. I just not a ton of positives to take from Brooks Lee's 2025. I still think there's positives in there, but it's really hard to grade him in any way other than, drum roll please, I gave him a D-, and I don't feel good about that, but I also don't feel like, low weighted runs created plus, not a lot of defensive value. And maybe the expectations are a little higher again, just based on everything we've ever heard about him, draft and pedigree and all that stuff. So yeah, not a great season for Brooks Lee, still holding out hope. All right, let's wrap this up. But before we do, with Austin Martin, I want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. It's not new anymore. We're coming close to the end of the season, but every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. We already know the Dodgers are going to be there. Who's going to join them? Do you have Toronto? Seattle? I honestly think either one of them would make for a good matchup. I was holding out for the Brewers, but they were pretty clearly overmatched by a superior Dodgers team. With that said, yeah, I'd love to hear who you're rooting for in the postseason. Leave it in the comments. Get, though, local analysis on a national scale with MLB, Locked On MLB Game Night. Find it Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. Last, but surely not least, Austin Martin. /282, 374, 365 in 181 plate appearances. Baseball Reference WAR says 0.7. Fangraphs a little friendlier at 1.0. I would like to see a little more pop and some better base running decisions, but he's an ideal fit as a fourth outfielder / occasional infielder. And I say I want to see more pop. I don't know that it's in there. He's only slugged 400 at one level in his pro career. And it was AAA St. Paul in 2023. And it was 405. So I know he's had like the wrist and hand issues or whatever, but it's not, there's not a lot of holding out hope that he's going to slug 450 at any point in his career. Maybe not even 425, 420. But I think his best bet at a future, you got like a left field, center field, top of the order kind of guy. Not going to settle in as an everyday at any position, but could finish the year with 450 plate appearances. Hit in situations late in games. He's going to make contact. We all know what Byron Buxton did as a leadoff hitter this season. And if you have visions of moving him down, Twins number 2 hitters hit 242, 305, 390 this season. So a 695 OPS and a 305 on base percentage, both of which were 26th. Now, Martin wouldn't help with the OPS on the slugging side of things, but on the on base side of things, he could definitely be helpful. Like it's not a perfect comparison, but he could do a decent Stephen Kwan impersonation. If Stephen Kwan hit 282, 374, 365, you wouldn't be terribly shocked. Kwan, not a big power guy, but he's a pest at the top of the order. And if you had a guy like Austin Martin playing left field, hitting leadoff, hitting second behind Alan Roden or Emmanuel Rodriguez, moving the line along in front of some of the bigger guys, whether it's Buxton, Warne, whoever, that there's a big league future for a guy like that. Again, I want to see better decisions on the bases. Maybe a little more pop if it's in there, even just shooting the gaps for a double every now and then. And then continue to work on the fielding. Obviously, he's a shortstop by trade, going back to his days at Vandy. He's played some second base. He only played like 4 games there for the Twins this year. So maybe the infield is just not going to be an option in the future for him in the big leagues. But as a center field, left field guy with on-base skills and contact skills, there's still a place for a player like that in today's game. And I think that Martin is able to fill that role for the Twins. And I think he had, all things considered, I mean, you extrapolate that out to a full season worth of plate appearances, you're looking at like a 2.5 win player. That's a very nice player to have in your back pocket, whether it's starting in left field or mixing and matching wherever you need help. So final grade for the day. We'll hit the drums one last time. Austin Martin, you get a B+. So to wrap it up, an A for Luke Keaschall, a D+ for Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee gets a D-, and Austin Martin a B+. But that's going to be it. That's a wrap. We're going to feed some ducks here as we get out of Dodge. I appreciate you hanging out with me as we go through Twins report cards. My name is Brandon Warne, and I'm so delighted you chose to hang out with me for this episode of Locked On Twins. We'll catch you on the flip side and see ya tomorrow night.